So Mello, check this out.
Mhm. So this is the rematch. Okay,
Mello's
let's go.
seen this before, though. I'm sure.
Yeah, I didn't know if he had or
So
not, but
you expect me to read?
yeah, well,
Read
I
it to
mean,
me. Let me
It's in
hear it.
red
in
box.
other words,
Red
they were
box.
enemies who even Kaguya wouldn't have been able to oppose without an army.
Okay.
Yes.
Thoughts?
And this is
Sure you've
so
seen
you
that before,
presented
right?
this, and this means what exactly?
That Momoshiki and Kinshiki and Urishiki are stronger than Kaguya.
Per this.
Per this, yes.
But I can present like all the material in the actual canon lore that contradicts this
Wait,
statement.
Then
this
I
is
can
in
present
the
all
Boruto
the evidence in the lore
novelization
that contradicts your
by
contradictions.
Kishimoto and Okio Kadachi. Wait, I'm
Well,
pretty sure this is from the Boruto movie novelization, and that was written by Kishimoto and
is.
Okio Kadachi.
okay.
Kodachi, the person
So
that is
do we
canon
want to do?
writing the
Wait.
verse for these others?
Just to be
No, I'm just letting you
clear.
know where it's from.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Just to be clear, we can do the Kaguya bit if you want to, like the whole Kaguya over them bit. I have all the screenshots and everything. I've done it like for the last year and a half. So,
Well,
if
yeah,
you want
Mello,
to,
we
we can do
watched
it.
the same
But
series.
but
I've done just as much evidence.
I'm
Like I
telling you,
watched the whole thing.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you, this is not a defeater, bro. But we can do it at
This
3 a.m.
does say enemy. This does say enemies, not just like one person.
There you go.
But if they do combine, then I guess she wouldn't be able to oppose them.
Okay. So you want to do it? Okay. Give me a second.
I do think that is what Kishimoto and Okio Kadachi
Let's
want
take
you to think.
maybe 10 minutes at most.
So I'm a roll with what the author wants me to think.
But to go with
And they
what
want me to
you
think
were
this.
asking for help with, Mello, there was no actual rematch. Like I didn't have anything in mind for that in particular. At most, it would be the Boruto Kawaki fight thing, but I already covered that at the beginning of stream.
Okay. No, I'm just bullshit. I was just joking.
No, yeah, no, it was really just to rile up your chat because that was fun.
So, the whole like Kaguya thing for me, like I've always been like, if I go like by feats, yeah, Kaguya is stronger than them. But like if I go by like what the series is trying to get me to think and lure me to think, yeah, she's probably weaker than them.
But that doesn't even work either, because for what I'm about to just present to you.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I
like, where do
think-
you want to start? You want to start with the like?
with this, I don't actually want to talk. Well, I mean, we can, but there's other things we could have talked
Yeah.
about.
So I'll read this out. So in other words, they were enemies who even Kaguya wouldn't have been able to oppose without an army. So I'm going to ask for context about this. I know Sauron said it came from the movie's novelization. Who is making this statement?
Do you mean the author or who's making the statement?
Like, is there a character in verse making this statement? Is this like an explanation to another character? Or is this like
I believe it's the
Kishimoto's writing?
narrator.
Okay.
I have to see if I can find it again.
It looks like the reason Kaguya was gathering white
skimmed
Zetsu soldiers was so she could
Yeah, it's a
fight.
narrator. They're quoting, like in the quotes is people like Sasuke speaking, and then the narrator says the next line, which is what's in the box.
Okay,
Meaning
you
it's
said so.
basically Kodachi saying it.
All right. Let me see. They were enemies.
Kodachi, the one who wrote
All right.
Momoshiki Kinshiki.
Do you think Ishiki Otsutsuki can defeat Momo? Base Momo, Kinshiki, and Urashiki. Are we tossing Urashiki in there? Is he canon to this?
Urashiki's not in the novel, so I wouldn't include Urashiki.
Okay. So can
Yeah, he's
Ishiki
not.
defeat the duo of Base Momo and Kinshiki?
I don't know.
I think
Probably.
so.
Do you think he's more powerful than them?
Individually, yeah.
The duo.
Yeah.
The duo together.
Oh, together. Probably.
To be fair, when it comes to power, I think Momoshiki holds a lot of power, but just doesn't use it well when he was alive anyway. As Borishiki, he uses it a lot better.
Like,
so I do think there's a little bit of
Ishiki
a
is brimming with
skill
power,
and arrogance factor.
whereas the duo of Kinshiki and Momoshiki were never stated to be brimming with power.
So individually he beats them, yes?
Yes.
But together you're not sure.
Probably. I would assume so.
I'm gonna
He beats him in a fight regardless.
Oots not gonna give any definitive answers.
For the sake of this, I'll say yes. For the sake of this, I'll say yes. But just know that really, I don't know.
Well,
which is what you actually.
But
which is
I
what
want
you
your
actually
actual
think.
like. I want your actual opinion. Like, do you actually think Ishiki can defeat individually Base Momo and Kinshiki, respectively? Yeah. Okay. But I'm gonna ask again. Do you think he can defeat them as a duo, Base Momo and Kinshiki?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think he's more powerful than them individually?
Yes. And together.
Do you think he's more powerful than them together as a duo?
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand the lore of the chakra fruit and the god tree? In particular, so I can give some context, it stores a record of all life on the planet,
Yeah.
all entities that lived and died on the planet.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you agree that Kaguya consumed the chakra fruit?
Yes.
Do you agree that Ishiki was on the planet when Kaguya consumed the chakra fruit?
Maybe.
Or he was on the planet in general
It's
before
possible.
she consumes the chakra fruit.
We don't see it.
So I'm gonna ask again.
Wait,
Within the history of Earth, was he on the planet before she consumed the chakra fruit?
In which continuity?
Does it matter?
Yes, because the anime does change a lot of things with the Kaguya filler.
Anime continuity, which is what I've
Are they
always
even-
argued for. Yeah, that's what I've always argued for, is the anime continuity. But also you can, if you want to, you can throw in manga or whatever.
I hadn't ever even thought about that. Was it ever stated to be on Earth, or I'm confused? Was it?
We'll find out.
I think
I never
Kaguya
even
came
actually thought
alone,
about that. I always just assumed that it was.
and so I think Kaguya
But it's
ate
gonna be
the chakra fruit we saw in the Kaguya filler, at least, unless there's two chakra fruits, which is possible. I think she ate that one without Ishiki, yes, in the anime.
Okay. So are you familiar with the lore that's provided by Amato?
Yeah.
About Kaguya and Ishiki's happenings? Okay. That lore do you have a reason to call into question him as a narrator as it pertains to this lore?
I think the omniscient narrator, which would just be the backstory we saw, would just be higher reliability.
That's not what I asked you.
Okay, then yes, because he wasn't there.
Do you have okay, that's fine. So we are operating with the anime continuity, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall where Naruto tries to get a measure of the Ten Tails energy as it pertains to nature energy? You
In the
recall that?
work? Yeah. I don't know the chapter number.
Do you recall, like, well, we're talking about the
Oh.
anime at this point. We've shifted over.
No, okay.
I think I've heard this argument before that you've made.
Do you recall what was spoken of?
I remember the scene, yes. It's immeasurable.
All right, someone provide a screenshot there.
Based on
Yeah.
Naruto's
So it's
sensory
immeasurable.
perception.
Right, and there's like no reason to like there's no like specificity in like how the sensory mechanic in this verse works. So there's no reason to believe it got like superior as like time like progressed or anything like that. Do you agree with that statement, or do you disagree?
No, I disagree with that.
Okay, can you explain why?
They're sensory ninja, and they seem to have different levels of skill and ability, and that also goes based on the amount of time that passes.
Can you prove that?
For example, the
That the
Byakugan.
skill increases. That's not proof. That's you just mentioned you just invoked the Byakugan. Like, in what way?
The
Does
Byakugan can
the
see
sensory skill
farther
improve
and
over
farther
time?
distances.
Okay, so the Byakugan is a
Wait,
sensory
what?
ability the Byakugan is a sensory ability in the vein of what Naruto is using to sense this, A, and then also B, you're telling me that you can see further as time progresses. Can you prove that?
Yeah, Hinata did. Hinata could see like 20 miles in, I think, Naruto Blast, but could not do that early on.
Okay.
So the
So do you
Byakugan
think
gets
that's
better over time.
like contextual?
Same with Urashiki.
So yeah, given part one, that's what you said, right? You're comparing her to part one.
From the
Was there
last,
like
yeah.
like a necessity for her?
What do you mean?
Yeah, the last
Well,
verse is her part
it
one.
stated what her limits are.
So what I'm saying was, in part one,
At some point, yeah.
I don't really need this because these aren't like analogous. But okay, you're trying to compare the Byakugan's abilities to like the abilities that Naruto used to sense nature energy,
That's
and pretending like this is
one
analogous.
comparison I could make. I didn't say that's the only comparison I could make. I also have the statement that Sage Mode increases your sensory perception. Same with KCM, which is what he did in the War
Okay.
Arc. So Naruto himself gets
Okay.
better with sensory ability over time.
I'm sorry, that doesn't even make sense. So how does a form get you better in an aspect that the form employs over time?
Because did he
Like, where's
have
that
the form before?
give me an
And
example
then
of
he
that.
had the form after. That was time passing. That was answering your question.
Kaguya is the Ten Tails. Do you agree with that? Sorry, try to speed blitz to this.
When?
I'm tired. Kaguya's the Ten Tails. Do you agree with that?
In which continuity?
We're talking about the anime. We already established that.
No, I don't believe Kaguya is the Ten Tails in the anime.
Okay, that's fine. During the battle between Naruto and Sasuke, when Kaguya turns into the Ten Tails, do you recall that happening?
I recall something vaguely similar to it looking like that, yes.
Jesus fucking
When
Christ.
the
Okay.
Nine Tails chakra inside her was trying to get
wait,
out,
wait, wait,
yeah.
wait. Sorry. So I'm tired. How about I just present my take and then like you can contradict it if you
That's
want to.
fine,
How
go
about that?
ahead.
Okay. I was trying to do this like yeah, okay. Um Give me a second.
Because I'm trying to get through this too. I'm not trying to stall this out any longer than needs to be.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so Amato, he makes he gives us a lore about Kaguya and Ishiki Otsutsuki. That lore isn't contradicted with what we see in the actual canon material. Everything that he spoke on, we actually see manifest itself in the form of Ishiki being inside again, him being bisected as well. And there's really no reason to call him to question him as like a narrator in this instance. You disagree, we can have we can agree to disagree, but that's like yeah. And I can provide those scans if you want me to. Now, given that we've established that Ishiki has come down to earth with Kaguya, and we understand the lore of the chakra fruit, it stores a record. And we know that Kaguya consumes the fruit and then goes into that transformed state while she's pregnant. She bisected him when she wasn't pregnant, so that means that happened before she consumed the fruit. And because Ishiki was on the planet before she consumed the fruit, she gets what she gets from the chakra fruit, which is going to be provided in these scans I'm going to provide here. And I'm also going to read them out loud for the peanut gallery. No offense to the peanut gallery. I love you deeply. Okay, so there you go. So in totality, it says, as it pertains to the chakra fruit and the God tree, it is the crystallization of a planet's life. It shall contain everything, period. A record of all life that ever lived and died on this planet, including me. So Ishiki is saying this to Code, and then he includes himself amongst those whose is recorded via this process. Now, given that Kaguya consumed the chakra fruit post her attack on him, and we know that the chakra fruit has his record, and it shall contain everything, given the context in which we're discussing. Kaguya gets everything, as mentioned. Now, you can ask the question, well, why didn't she employ X, Y, and Z? That's not really my burden. I don't really give a fuck about that. And then I also have further lore of Amato explaining like the process of the chakra fruit as well. There's no reason to not believe him. That's even backed up by Ishiki's own words to Koda as well about the process of the chakra fruit and what you gain from it. So that alone gets you, per description, Kaguya should get herself times 2 because it stores a record. So she has her own power, and then she consumes this. She should get double per the description. And then also Ishiki's power as well. And then also in Shippuden, she has immeasurable nature energy. You can argue Naruto's ability to sense. I don't really care about that. I was just interested in your perspective. But nevertheless, the chakra from the first wave from the Infinite Tsukuyomi is stated by Naruto to be much stronger than Ten Tails, the same Ten Tails that possesses immeasurable nature energy. So at the very most, he can measure the chakra itself. This would be like something to point to in terms of like him comparing the
So if he can measure this chakra, but can't measure the immeasurable chakra, which should be larger, then that should be inconsistent. So that means he's not sensing in the same way. The immeasurable chakra would be larger because he can't measure it, whereas the measurable chakra, he can measure it, so it would be smaller than an amount of chakra that he wouldn't be able to measure. So what he's measuring, or what's immeasurable, is the nature energy, not the chakra of the Ten Tails.
I never said that. I'm sorry.
I'm saying the series would be contradicting itself because he's measuring something that's bigger than something that's immeasurable. He's not able to measure the Ten Tails chakra, but the chakra from the God tree all over the world, or Infinite Tsukuyomi, is larger, more stronger, or whatever, than the Ten Tails, which he couldn't measure. So how could he determine that the chakra from the Infinite Tsukuyomi is stronger than the Ten Tails if he can't determine the strength of the Ten Tails?
That's easy because he's measuring the nature energy, and the nature energy itself is immeasurable. But that doesn't mean that nature energy is necessarily being employed by the Ten Tails at any given moment. Him saying this chakra referring to the infinite Tsukuyomi chakra, is much stronger than the Ten Tails. This is taking into consideration what he's experienced the Ten Tails actually do with what it has. Not like it like so the Ten Tails could have I don't know, immeasurable nature energy, but not employ the totality of that measurable nature energy. There's nothing like getting there, right? This is just like a possibility. But
No,
given what the
because
Ten Tails did,
I
this chakra that
disagree.
he's sensing is much stronger than it.
It can't be
Okay,
based on
cool.
his experience of the Ten Tails because bringing that, it would have to be an experience to the chakra. Naruto doesn't know the strength of the chakra. He only knows the quantity of it based on his sensing. So he's determining the chakra of the
No,
infinite
sorry,
Tsukuyomi from the chakra of the Ten Tails,
you're
which is
wrong.
different from the nature energy.
No, I'm talking about like the feats of the entity. Like it having immeasurable nature energy is not a feat. He would measure because he's talking about it's much stronger than the Ten Tails. So that strength would be measured by what it does, not what it has, because what it has may not necessarily be employed.
But
Am I clear with
chakra
that?
doesn't have strength.
Okay, so you can imbue chakra, which manifests as strength, right?
Yes.
So chakra through a medium will be strength. Do you agree with that?
No. So this just means that if the Ten Tails had this amount of chakra from the infant Tsukuyomi, it would have more potential to do higher or just more things in general. This saying that it would
Yeah, we're
just
talking about
have more
potential, but
chakra.
not net. Wait,
So the
we're
chakra
talking
from the
about
infant
potential.
Tsukuyomi is more than
No,
the
wait,
chakra from the Ten Tails.
sorry. There's two things.
Yeah.
Again, it's what the Ten Tails has at the time, which is immeasurable nature energy, but that does not necessarily mean it uses that immeasurable nature energy. That's not what that means. It just means he has it, he sensed it, it's immeasurable to him at the time, right? But
Yeah.
when he's measuring the chakra being absorbed by Madara, he's saying the chakra is stronger than Ten Tails. And how he measures the stronger or the strength of the Ten Tails to even make that statement valid is through the Ten Tails' feats that he's seen thus far in the series. I don't know how else to explain it.
But this, in a way, is a feat because Naruto's experiencing it. Even if the Ten Tails doing nothing, Naruto's the one experiencing the Ten Tails having immeasurable power. So he
I don't
would be
think you
comparing
understand
it
what I'm
to
saying.
this.
Like I've said,
This would be
no.
the
What
strength
I'm
of the
saying,
Ten Tails,
the
immeasurable.
the infinite Tsukuyomi that's being absorbed into Madara is not being compared to the immeasurable nature energy of the Ten Tails. It's being compared to the feats that the Ten Tails has performed thus far, because there's no nothing pointing to the Ten Tails employing that immeasurable nature energy. You have no evidence of that. We know it's there, but we don't have any evidence that it's being like imbued or used to the degree in which it's scaling to that like immeasurable height.
We don't know
Right?
if that's
Or getting anywhere
true.
close to that.
Because going with the assumption that the tailed beast ball, or the Ten Tails in general, uses the nature energy, it would be using it. And it doesn't have to use all of it. It doesn't have to use all the immeasurable amount of it all at once. It would just have to be using it in general, which it likely is.
I don't deny that it's using nature energy. I think it did a cataclysm, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I have no way of measuring what goes into what it does, right? Do you?
The point is that we have the idea that it would go into it. So if nature energy goes into the cataclysm, that's all we would
that's
need.
not true. That's not true. We know that nature energy does go into a thing, but we don't know how much of that thing, how much of the energy goes into said thing. So what I'm saying is because I don't know, I can't sit here and say that he employed the totality of the immeasurable nature energy.
It wouldn't need to be. It would
I
just
know
need to
that he
be
has
nature
it via
energy in
Naruto's
general.
statement.
He doesn't need to employ the
I don't think
totality
you
of it.
understand what I'm
Because he's
Kido
experienced
here?
this, Naruto would know if the Ten Tails is using all of it or not. So it doesn't matter if he experienced the cataclysm because he already experienced this. And he's not measuring it based on what the Ten Tails can do.
Okay,
He's
we
measuring it based on the strength of the Ten Tails. Strength includes potential.
in some context, sure. We can agree to disagree. I think
Okay.
I've explained it the best way I know how.
That's fine.
Okay. So this chakra is much stronger than the Ten Tails. Via my interpretation. I've explained this. I don't really care to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then we see the scan where he Madara is bloating up. And then we have the statements from Sasuke where he explains what's going on. Now, the whole purpose of all this, the point that I'm bringing this up is that Madara acts as a vessel for Kaguya. We even see like the Ten Tails rabbit goddess form spit out the body of Madara when she's being like sealed away and shit like that. And we understand that like Madara as a Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails. Would you agree with this statement? How about I just ask you? Do you think Madara, Ten Tails Jinchuriki Madara, is more powerful than human Jigen?
What's the cross scaling there? What's the significance of this question?
Well, I'll get to that once you answer the question.
Do you mean like stronger or could beat
The
in a fight?
human
I think
monk.
Jigen would be stronger.
You think the human monk Jigen is more powerful?
Okay, do
Like
you mean the human monk
Jigen.
Jigen or Ishiki controlling Jigen from the Naruto fight?
No, I mean the human body. So you do understand, like, okay, the reason why Jigen is dying is because he reincarnated in a human body, right? That body is Jigen. It can't house his immense power. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that Jigen's body is human?
At first, yes. I think the Karma Seal extracted 100%, so he was genetically 100% Otsutsuki. So he would get a base amp, the same way that Boruto would, or Kawaki.
Okay, what is that base amp based on? It's a simple answer, you just answered it.
Strength? What? Chakra? Base? Otsutsuki? Genetics?
The karma. The karma, right?
Okay,
The
yeah.
genetics will be equal to, like, yeah. So if his base has been altered on the genetic level to be that of Ishiki, is what you're saying, correct?
On the genetic level, his space has been altered to that of Ishiki. Yeah.
Okay. So why is it that Ishiki is still dying when he reincarnates?
What's the explanation they give in the manga or anime? I guess it's the body is still weak, too weak to do the immense power. So
remember,
Ishiki.
you just said the body. You just said the body becomes Ishiki. So why
No,
is
I
he
didn't.
still
I didn't
dying?
say that. It's genetically Ishiki, but it doesn't have Ishiki's
You
power.
quite literally just said that.
I did not quite literally just say
Okay,
that.
so we're trying to. So, but you say it's a base amp. So that base amp has to come from what?
The Karma Seal.
But what does the Karma Seal facilitate?
But I
Because
didn't.
remember,
I
you
didn't
said the base amp
quantify
stems
the
from
strength
his
of the
altered
amp.
genetic.
I didn't say that Jigen is as strong
I'm
as
not asking you to
Ishiki.
quantify.
Okay.
I'm not asking you to quantify it. What I'm asking, not now. I'm asking you, what is that base amp based on? It's based on what you
The
said
Karma
it
Seal.
was, which was the altered genetics.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what the karma does. The karma. I'll send you scans of what karma is. Do you know what karma is?
No, you don't have to ask me that.
No, I have to, because
Well, you don't
you're
have
saying,
to, but yes,
because
I
you're doing the
do.
bar
Since
thing.
we're gonna do that, yeah.
No, okay. So it sounds like you're doing the bar thing where you think karma is separate from the Otsutsuki in terms of like power, like what? Because the Otsutsuki, you know this, like they digitize themselves or convert themselves into that data that becomes the karma, correct?
Yes.
I have scans, by the way.
It's compressed data.
So karma equals Otsutsuki.
It's the data of the Otsutsuki, yes.
Karma equals Otsutsuki.
Yes. So Jigen has 100%
data
of
comprised of?
Ishiki's data. I don't know what is data comprised of in this context. Genetic material?
Information. The information of a person. The totality of that person converted down into that particular form. It's data of the Otsutsuki. So that's the information of that person.
Into the compressed
Totality,
chip, yes.
That slowly decompresses over time and rewrites the genetics of the vessel, which we, per your statement, established that Jigen has been converted into an Otsutsuki, which is Ishiki, because that's what the person who put the karma on him, yes?
Yeah, but what does decompress mean in this context? Because he can still go into karma states. State 1, state 2, the horn. And even then, the karma's not spread across his entire body. It has certain marks on him, but he still even resembles Jigen.
So decompression would mean the description that's provided in the actual series, where over a period of time it decompresses and slowly rewrites the genetics of the vessel, as explained.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's genetically.
So I'm gonna ask again.
Ishiki.
Why is it that when Ishiki Otsutsuki reincarnates, is his body still dying if the body is genetically him?
Because of his brimming power, which only exists with Ishiki, not with Jigen.
But remember, Jigen's body has been rewritten to be Ishiki. So why is this a conflict?
The brimming power doesn't come from the genetics. We don't know what it comes from, but this would just imply that it comes from something else. Whether it's his chakra pool that isn't related to his genetics, we don't know. It could be a byproduct of unleashing the Karma Seal as well.
Can you prove that?
No, I'm just presenting possibilities.
Okay, so let's rely on like the default, right? So like we understand how chakra works, right? We understand like chakra can the quantity and quality of it is based largely on your genetics. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? Are we arguing like the mechanics of chakra in 2024?
It can be based partly on it, yes. It isn't always in every instance.
Okay. So given that partly explanation is more than you have with your hypothetical, can we like work with that and move on?
No, because there exists Shinobi without Kekkei Genkai.
Kekkei Genkai is a bloodline trait.
Yeah,
We're talking about chakra.
which is genetics.
So chakra is genetics.
No, Kekkei Genkai is genetics.
That's what you just said.
Chakra is a separate entity, essentially.
Okay. So genetics does not influence chakra.
Not inherently. Not in everyone.
Okay. So when Ishiki Otsutsuki reincarnates, what's facilitating that process?
When he reincarnates,
Now,
what's
this is why I asked you,
facilitating the
do you know how
process?
karma works?
The karma extraction?
That's why I asked you, do you know what karma works? Because now we're looping again. Because Otsutsuki, they compress themselves down into data. That data is the karma seal, slowly decompresses over time, right? And and then it rewrites the genetics of the vessel, right? And then facilitating the resurrection, given all the prerequisites are met, and then they manifest given the data that's been decompressed over time.
Yeah, at
Right? Do you agree with
100%,
that?
it doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of that. It just means all the data is ready to be extracted at any moment. It's like zip filing something, but not running the file.
But we're talking about like post resurrection. So why is he brimming with power? Where's that power even coming from? Why does he even look like the way he does? Why does he look like Ishiki Otsutsuki? Is it from the data from the karma that's been decompressing all this time, facilitating his resurrection, or is it from the fucking ether?
We don't really know, do we?
Which one's more logical? I know. I'm trying to get
Well,
you to
is it
understand.
stated in the
So is
series?
it from the actual karma? Yes. This is the reason why I've asked you. Do you understand how karma works?
Okay, well, say it.
Like where's the chakra coming from? Where's all this coming from, Oodie?
The karma, Ishiki?
Because the only explanation
somewhere.
I'm getting is like the ether. It comes from like the misty fucking blue. I don't know. Like where's it coming from?
I mean,
Look,
it's coming
the
from
point here
Ishiki, if
is-
you want an answer.
And Ishiki is the karma. Now we're looping again. Okay, so let's move on. We can just agree to disagree.
Karma's
Okay.
genetic information. But
So because information, the totality of that being compressed itself into that form, and it's slowly decompressed over time. The totality of that being. So okay. Anyways, so moving on from there. Sorry, I'm a little tired, so I'm getting
You're
my
fine.
patience is a little bit more thin. I apologize. Okay. So given the fact that we understand how the mechanic works with Jigen, but he's still breaking down nevertheless, right? We can understand that the human element of Jigen is still at play. Do you agree that that's common sense given like what's been presented in the material? So we understand how the karma seal functions. We already went over that mechanic ad nauseum at this point. However, Ishiki is still dying, right? So if the idea is that Jigen's body is now Ishiki via the decompression of karma over a period of time, why is he dying? The most logical explanation is that the human element of Jigen is still at play.
Sure.
Okay. So given the fact that we can't measure, because you said he gets some kind of base amp via his decompressed karma. I'm not entirely sure if Jigen gets a base amp from the decompressed karma. I can't. Can you prove that, by the way?
Actually, I'm gonna rescind my sure. I'm gonna say we don't know. It's not a disagree, but Jigen doesn't exist in the world anymore. He's become the vessel. So
Okay.
I don't think
So we're gonna agree to
it's
disagree.
it's not like what Kaguya did with Madara, because Kaguya was able to spit out Madara. I don't think Ishiki could have done that to Jigen. I think Jigen stopped existing. His body transformed into Ishiki, and it was just gone. It was
Okay.
rewritten.
We can agree to disagree.
Okay.
Even though Ishiki himself refers to Jigen when he cries and calling him inferior, but okay.
Yeah, well,
So
how
let's
does that
proceed.
debunk anything? Okay, anyways, proceed.
Well, because you said like Jigen no longer exists, but like his
Afterwards,
dialogue
after
would be
the
to the contrary.
karma
What you just said.
extracts, yeah. After Koji kills him and he revives. That's what I mean. Not when he hits 100% when he revives.
So you're saying post death,
Yes.
Jigen no longer exists.
Not post death,
Okay.
but once Ishiki
then I'm gonna
revives
ask you-
into him, he uses the karma seal to
Okay.
extract it. Yeah.
Okay. So can you explain why the body is still breaking down and Ishiki's about to die?
Because of the brimming power. It's because the Jigen's body wasn't an adequate
Jigen
host.
is gone, but remember you just said Jigen's gone.
Yes.
He got rewritten.
That's okay.
Into Ishiki. So per your logic, Ishiki should be reincarnating into Ishiki, which should be able to house his power.
No, his body wasn't an adequate host. It's like your mom isn't an adequate birthing person for you, but you're your own separate entity. Like, you can be birthed afterwards, you can have complications because of your mom, but that's not you. And that's not because of your mom in the present. Jigen
I really agree to
wasn't
disagree.
an adequate vessel. It isn't that he isn't an adequate vessel, because Jigen no longer exists to be a vessel in the first place. It is just Ishiki.
We agree to disagree.
Okay.
Okay. So again, I believe that the reason why Ishiki is still dying is because there's the human element of Ishiki, of rather Jigen, is still at play. Otherwise, there's something that doesn't make sense there. That's why I'm asking you to try to provide some kind of like explainer for that. And I'm not even sure what you're talking about at this point.
Well, why does it
But again, we
have
can
to
agree to
still
disagree.
be at
I'm
play?
tired.
Why does it have to still be at play in the present? Why can't it be something that happened and it's just applying to now,
Mhm.
at the moment he revived?
I suppose I just don't understand. Like, I can't envision what you're saying. So maybe you can explain it to me in a way I can comprehend, because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I can't explain it based on the science in the series, but I can explain it based on logic of the terms they use. You can argue that it's inconsistent or bad writing, that's fine. But Jigen isn't an adequate host. So when Ishiki revived into Jigen, Jigen no longer existed. Jigen wasn't an adequate host. Therefore, the vessel that is Ishiki is dying. Based on
Where
the
does the
explanation we have in the
inadequacy
series.
come from? Where does that stem from? Why is Jigen, at any point, was he ever an inadequate host?
We don't know what the karma seal. Actually, we do. It's because of the wavelength. Jigen had a bad wavelength, whereas Kawaki had a good wavelength. Is how it's described in the series. It's more of a theory, but it's like what it's stated.
I'm not really looking for. I'm not looking for theories, to be honest. I'm just
Well, no,
looking for.
it's not a theory. It's just stated, but you'll see. Like, what do you think makes a good vessel or a bad vessel? Is there anything in the series that?
I don't know. Well,
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure if it was explained. I think if anything, it was kind of like ambiguous. Like, it didn't.
No, I agree.
go
I
into
think the
detail. Like, they didn't
closest,
know.
yeah, the closest thing we have is the wavelength idea. Is that Kawaki was on the same
What
wavelength
does that
as
come
Jigen.
from? I'm like super.
It's in the
I'm
manga.
super curious. Like,
Kamui has it. He's gonna hopefully send it to me.
is it that scene where like is it that scene where like Kawaki's speculating as to like why like once he gets karma like reconstituted and he saves Naruto, he's like, now I'm starting to understand why I was chosen. Is that the scene?
I'm texting Kamui to send it in the chat. He's listening. He texted me saying the wavelength thing
Okay.
is more so about why they're good vessels, but that doesn't help because that's exactly what I've been saying.
I mean, it would be nice to have something to look at, but okay.
Yeah.
Until then, I can't really work with what's not here. So anyway, like I said, in the absence of like another explainer, I would say like the human, like the thing that makes Ichigen deficient, is like he's a basic normal human being. Wrong place, wrong time. I think this was actually depicted or described by a motto. I think I provide a scan.
Well,
Right
wrong
here.
place, wrong time is in terms of his luck.
I know.
If
Well, that
it's
was just like a little flourish I'm putting on there. It's not like critical to my argument. So okay, here it is. Let me see this.
yeah,
This
I also disagree with the basic human thing being why it's bad. But Jigen chose me. I didn't want to admit it, but in the end, I'm like him. It's the whole being on the same wavelength thing. Starting to understand why Jigen chose me.
I'm not entirely sure how like Kawaki's reliable in this instance.
He says it's nauseating, but I can't deny
what is
it.
this?
It seems like it's either something Jigen told him, or it's an Otsutsuki thing that he just knows because Otsutsuki-ness.
Well, that now we're getting into like theories. But
No, I agree. It's not
ask what is-
100%
I would ask
reliable.
what is wavelength?
It's
Yeah,
the
so
closest thing we have,
wavelength
though.
in this context.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wavelength in this context, what do you think it's alluding to?
We don't know exactly. If I had to say, I would say it's in reference to like personality, for example, would be something.
Mhm.
Or maybe attitude,
That's-
ego, instinct, something like that. Experience, even. Behavior,
Okay.
aptitude,
So,
something. It's the closest thing we
Okay.
have.
no, I respect the effort for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Hold on.
Kamui says Jigen told him.
Type something.
I don't think we know that.
You could argue that Jigen was on the same wavelength, but just had a weak body, whereas Kawaki is on the same wavelength and has a good body, you can
Motherfucker's on the same
instead, argue that Jigen just wasn't on the same wavelength. But I don't think we would have received he would have received the karma seal in the first place. In that case, I think he would have just died. Jigen told him he at some point told him about the same wavelength thing. Jigen told him he at some point. Sorry, I'm not sure he's split this up. Is this like one sentence, or is he just saying he at some point told him?
I think the
He being
point
Jigen.
is looking at the manga,
About the same.
being on the same wavelength is in bold, as if it's like a quotation mark. Obviously, this would come from Jigen, that's who he's talking about. So Jigen is telling Kawaki that they're on the same wavelength. Kawaki is putting the dots together to say that's why Kawaki was chosen.
Oh, where does it say Jigen told him that? Where is that?
It's in the context of the first panel. I'm fighting to understand why Jigen chose me. I didn't want to admit it, but in the end, I'm like him. It's the whole being on the same wavelength thing. So him is in reference to Jigen, who he said previously.
But he's saying I'm like him. He didn't like. There's nothing in that dialogue alluding to him being told by someone in particular. This seems to be a conclusion that he's just arriving on.
No, he
based
says
upon, like, lived
it's
experience
the
or
whole
something of the
being
sort.
on the same wavelength thing, starting with it's the whole and ending with thing, and then the middle part being the quotation, would mean it's coming from someone else. It's very clear to me that someone told Kawaki the being on the same wavelength thing.
I don't know. That's very clear. Like that could be some kind of like this is like some kind of like statement that would be understood by them, like something colloquial or something of the sort, or it could even be referencing some kind of like belief or some kind of like ideology or something like that.
It's
I
an
don't know, but
idea
the fact that those
presented to him.
possibilities exist.
It's also possible that someone like Amado told him, not necessarily Jigen, but I
Okay.
think the most likely assumption would be Jigen. But no, I'll give you that.
That's fine. So you think that Jigen as a human can house the immense power of Ishiki?
Why? My answer is
This is
no.
taking too
I
long.
don't
Oodie.
think Jigen as a human can house the immense power of Ishiki.
Why not?
Because he's not on the same wavelength. It's the closest thing I have to go off of. If you're going with power because you're saying he's just some basic human, implying he's weak, I don't think that would be the case, because Ishiki's just, or I guess Jigen's just getting random kids off the street, not powerful shinobi or anyone. So it can't be based off of power, based off that. If it's based off of power, he would be getting more powerful people instead of random kids like Kawaki, who weren't even a shinobi.
I don't think he knows what he's looking for, because I don't think that's ever stated. Excuse me.
That's ridiculous. Can I call argument of absurdity? That is a
Wait a
fallacy.
minute.
I
Is
do wanna
that
clarify.
incorrect? Is that incorrect?
The fact that every Otsutsuki understands all the other Otsutsuki abilities, such as the ability to fly, they don't have to be taught it, they just instinctually understand it. It would just mean Jigen should have knowledge of
What
it.
in the series, bro, is literally he went through like a bunch of people to arrive at like he lucked up and arrived at like Kawaki. And like Code was like an anomaly that he couldn't even explain. If the idea is that like because he understands some aspects of karma, he understands them all. Why does he understand the white karma? And why did he go through so many people? Why did he need to invoke Amato as someone that could help him reach his conclusion if he just had like an understanding of all this stuff?
If the white
I
karma is
think
not
the
natural,
lore
it
is
would
pretty
make sense
clear.
he wouldn't have knowledge on it. It's a mutation.
But wouldn't he have a not? But given your idea, he would have knowledge about that, like the possibility of that anomaly.
No, I disagree, because it's an anomaly.
But even getting away,
It's unnatural.
even getting that contradicts like what you stated. But then you argue that I shouldn't take it literally, so that's fine. Getting away from that, like the last point, like why is he like cycling through a whole bunch of people? Why is he invoking oh boy?
To try and find an adequate vessel, so he can have knowledge of what an adequate vessel would be, but if he doesn't have knowledge on the vessels themselves, then it doesn't matter. So he doesn't know these kids.
Okay, so how does murdering scores of children let him get to know them better? What kind of process is he employing to get to know the kids?
He's putting it on as many people as possible in hopes of finding a vessel as fast as possible. If he got to know the kids, that would delay the process. So he doesn't need to know the kids to put the karma on them. The kids just have to be on the same
The
wavelength.
1,000-year-old process. Okay, so if the same wavelength is one's disposition, then can they just grab any random kid and then like raise them to be more like Jigen or Ishiki rather, so that they could be a suitable vessel? And if
Again, we
so,
don't
why
know what
wasn't
it's
that
based
done?
off of necessarily what wavelength is. It could be based off of birth, so nature instead of nurture.
Well, that's why I'm going off of the explanation that you provided. So, given your explanation, can you answer that question?
The explanation I provided earlier, like
Yes, you
said,
said
it could be many
like they're
things.
okay. So you don't have an answer for the question I just asked. Just to be clear.
For what wavelength
Oodie, I'm
is, I
tired,
do
bro.
have an answer.
Please.
What's the
No,
question
no,
you
no,
asked?
no. That's not the point. No, I asked you what wavelength was. You already gave an answer. So what I'm saying is, given your answer, why didn't Jigen get a child and then raise them to have the same disposition as him, so that they would be adequate vessels? If your explanation for what wavelength means in this context is accurate, wouldn't that just be a really simple process? Why murder people?
Because I didn't say it has to be disposition. It could be nature.
Okay. So what is nature?
Nature is what you're born with. So he wouldn't be able to change someone to have the same wavelength as him. It would be determined at birth. Similar to genetics.
So does Amato not? Does he not have the ability to like clone people? Does he not like? Is he not a geneticist? I just don't understand. Like, if it's as simple as like curating a person, there are elements within the verse that can, even people within his own organization, like in Amato, a geneticist. There are elements that can be invoked that one would imagine wouldn't that he would do, but it seems like the actions in the canon material would speak to the contrary. That's why
First
I'm
of all,
confused here.
no, I don't think Amado can clone someone, otherwise he would just clone Akebi. Second of all, he would betray Ishiki, or
No,
Jigen, is what he
that's
seems like he would do so far.
he cloned Ikebi. He just couldn't like clone the totality of her like personality.
I mean, clone
But like
is
he
an
cloned
interesting
her. She was
word,
healthy.
considering she's like robotic. I would consider cyborg.
Okay, Kawaki's a cyborg.
I'd say Kawaki's more android. Like, Kawaki was human. There weren't several
No, Android
deltas.
has no biological components. But I don't know about like the state of the first one. I
I
don't
might
know
be
what that is.
confusing android
That
and
could have been.
cyborg. Yeah, the point is Delta is constructed instead of born. She's a robot. Whereas Kawaki was born and then augmented with scientific ninja tech.
So you're saying like Amato's not a geneticist?
That's
That he
not
didn't clone his daughter?
Well,
That
no, I don't think he cloned
That's
his
what
daughter. No.
Okay. All right. Maybe we can pull up the chapter. Let me see.
If they use the word clone, they could just be using some other version of clone, such as copy, which would work for robot. It's in her image.
Well, isn't that like
For example,
super
shadow
convenient?
clone jutsu. Naruto's not a geneticist.
Yeah, but like given the context in which he was explaining what he was doing with his daughter, like obviously, right? We take common sense into effect.
If that's the case, then he's a failed
Okay.
geneticist. Just because you try to do something, if you can't do it, then that doesn't make you it.
Kamui, bro, it's 4 a.m., bro. You can't be typing an essay. I'm not trying to read that, bro. I'm sorry. You gotta
Do you
come
want
in
me to
chat and
read it or
speak.
no?
I mean, if you like, man.
I'll read it. Throughout this
I'm not
chapter,
reading that.
Kawaki keeps thinking about things Jigen has told him, and the way it's phrased, it's pretty clear Jigen previously just have said something that to Kawaki about them being on the same wavelength. Ishiki chose people he thought would potentially be good vessels, but at the end of the day, he wouldn't know for sure until he saw the end result. Since Kawaki survived and received karma properly, Ishiki knew they were on the same wavelength. It might not be as simple as just raise them to be Ishiki. It might require both nature and nurture.
You're echoing.
Well, I'm not. It's Kido.
Damn,
Kido,
can
can
you mute
you?
him?
Can you? Kido?
I mean, you're in control of the group.
Am I? Is that how groups work? This isn't a server here. I can user volume down to 0. I did it for me. Does that do it for you? You could just do it too, really quick, and put it
I'm
back.
just gonna mute him.
Yeah, that works. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So it might not be as simple as just raise them to be Ishiki, or to be like Ishiki. It might require both nature and nurture to be on the same wavelength. No Oodie, Delta is a cyborg, not an android. She's not a robot. She's just very modified human. She was a clone of Akebi, an artificial human like Hashinkoji. Well, there you go.
about the
Uh,
clone being a clone, which gives Amato to being a geneticist, which gives Ishiki assets to use in this particular regard. If it's about wavelength, then he can employ those as accordingly.
again, if he can't make Akabe the same way, then it doesn't matter because if he tries to make someone like Jigen, they're not going to end up like Jigen. So even if Delta is a clone instead of a robot, it wouldn't matter because Amado can't effectively use his genetic abilities to properly give Jigen the assets he would need. Jigen has faulty assets in that case.
What would he need? Per your definition, all he would need is to like curate a type of person that would be close to like Ishiki's disposition. So like what do you and if it's like I'm assuming wavelength, are we talking about like Jigen or like Ishiki? Because if it's like he's on like the same wavelength as Jigen, I'm assuming you mean Ishiki, not Jigen.
Yeah,
Right. Just want to like clarify things.
that would be the Otsutsuki.
Okay, that's a distinction that's actually really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just seems
Okay.
very inconvenient
So,
to
yeah.
try and fail to make random clones of kids instead of just going out and getting mass kids. Like, I'm sure it takes effort, material, money to make a clone anyways. It would just be more
Victor had a
convenient to
lot of
go
money.
get kids.
Victor had resources. He has access to money. That's not an issue.
He didn't have Victor
he had
for a
time.
long
That's
time.
not
I'm
an
pretty sure
issue.
Victor was pretty new. I could be wrong on that, though.
Do you know how new he is relative to when he formed the org?
No, but even then, it would still be inconvenient to make a clone of a kid instead of going out and getting kids, regardless of the resources.
Kamui, the problem. Sorry, Kamui. Sorry, I'm fucking tired, and this is ridiculous. Kamui. The problem is the clones. The clones things established. Which I think we agree with. And the personalities is that's something that can be through indoctrination, through conditioning, through grooming, so to speak. So that wouldn't be an issue. The only reason why we're only like the cloning thing is because he has multiple definitions for wavelength in this context. So the disposition was one of them. The genetics is a possibility, I guess. I'm sure there'll be a third one after I get through this one, the first two. Is there a third one?
I have one definition. It just so happens that multiple things are in the definition.
Well, I've addressed all the ones you presented thus far. Is there a third one?
No. Genetics.
Okay,
so if it
so
would
we're
be a
getting somewhere.
clone of a whatever, if it's the same clone genetics,
Mhm.
like Kamui's saying, then there'd be no point if the original didn't work in the first place. You just go find a different kid with different genetics.
What?
Based on what Kamui's saying, I don't think the clones have the same genetics anyways, unless I'm forgetting something.
A clone wouldn't have the same personality. Okay, I already read that. That's not an issue. That's conditioning. Just the same genetics. Okay.
So he's saying the
if the
clone has the
idea
same
is
genetics
about
as the
genetics-
original. I don't think that's true.
Akibi was cloned. Do you not think the clone had the genetics of Akibi?
Delta? I don't know. Yes, maybe. Do you think so? Actually, no. You're right. You're right. It would because Kawaki has Akebi's karma seal somehow, which means Amado would have to have it. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. The Delta's clone do
Okay.
have
Please
Akebi's genetics.
Stop this contrarian shit, please. It's too late for this, bro.
That's not contrarian.
Okay.
I just didn't know.
Cool.
Just didn't think about that.
So the issue is not if the issue is not genetics, it's personality, and then we can remove genetics. Okay, so it's personality, disposition, whatever. Do you agree or disagree that can be manifested through conditioning of a child?
We can't remove genetics from the wavelength, just from the cloning. It's possible genetics have to do with the
removing it.
wavelength.
I'm not removing it, Oodie. I'm saying that it's possible to account for the genetic element given your explanation.
I'm pretty sure you just said we were
That's the
removing
entire
it.
point of this.
But
No, I'm saying we can remove that from like the conversation discussion. Like we can move on past. Sorry if I need to.
well, if
Not, like,
the
remove it from,
genetics
like-
are relative to the wavelength, then it still matters.
No, I'm not, sorry. I'm not saying that remove. I didn't mean remove it like it doesn't matter. I'm saying like we've addressed it and we can move past it. Maybe my wording was poor.
That's fine.
I believe that it's possible to condition a child. I think we have like all of human history that can point to that. Grooming, having a child like be manipulated by adults in such a way, right? What are we thinking? Possible.
Again, we don't know like if Ikimoto, I guess Kishimoto, would consider personality to be determined at birth, regardless of genetics. because genetics would be formed before birth, anyways.
I'm not talking about personality at birth. I'm talking about the curation of a disposition, the curation of a personality, so that we can match the wavelengths if your definition of wavelengths is inaccurate. We've
Amado
already
can't
addressed the
do
genetic
that.
component. Now we're addressing the disposition.
Yeah, Amado can't do that.
Amado's scientific prowess is not what's his scientific prowess is not going to be on display when it comes to the conditioning of the child. Not you don't need to be a scientist to groom or condition a child to behave in the way that you want.
But if it's
That's
determined
Amado's no
from
longer relevant.
birth, then it doesn't matter. Or from when they're made.
What disposition does a person have at birth that carries into life that doesn't alter, change, or develop in some sense? Like, can you give me an example of that?
That would depend on
Like the
Kishimoto's
ability to
knowledge.
whine and shit.
I'm not aware of Kishimoto's knowledge.
Okay.
No, it'd be personality, behavior. So Kawaki would just
Okay.
naturally be like this
So can you?
regardless.
Okay. So do you believe that someone's personality or behavior can be mimicked in another person?
Mimic doesn't mean it is.
Quite literally, it does.
It's like camouflage to where the original isn't actually that color.
So, can one's personality or behavior be copied or mimicked in another person? That's all I'm asking. It's a yes or no question, honestly.
By Amado,
And the
no.
answer is yes. I'm not saying by Amado. I'm saying by anyone
Well, no,
that
because
can condition a child, which is anyone.
when you say copy, you mean
Hell,
to
your
take from
peers
one
as a
and
child can condition you.
apply to the other. If one person acts
No, I
like
said
another
mimicked.
person,
I
they're
said
still
mimicked.
copying, but that's a different terminology.
Then invoke the colloquial or terminology that needs invoking in the word of copy or mimic that gets you to the conclusion I'm trying to disseminate, which is they take a child and they condition that child from birth to have the disposition, the behavioral traits of one Ishiki Otsutsuki. If your definition for wavelength is even accurate, is it possible to do that? That's what I'm asking.
I don't think
And
so.
the answer is yes.
Again, it would go based on Ikamoto's knowledge of this in the first place, considering he's the one writing it.
No, it would go based on common sense, Oodie, because Kawaki, if your idea is correct, then Kawaki's disposition is what Ishiki, his disposition would be. We've addressed the genetic component that you invoked. Now we're addressing the disposition, the behavioral traits.
No, so
right? So all
Mello,
we have to do is copy
it's possible
Kawaki's
that
behavioral traits.
it's possible that Akabi Delta is just her natural self. Akabi was conditioned at birth to be a good person or whatever, which is why when it's cloned, it's different. It's taking the component from birth, not her current personality that she was conditioned into. So hypothetically, if Kawaki was born in the Leaf Village, he was raised to be a good person, just like Naruto, and then Jigen found him, took him, he'd still be of the same wavelength, even if he had a different personality from Jigen at that point because he's been conditioned differently. And then if you cloned that version of Kawaki, that clone would still be like the Kawaki we know now, even if it's different from Kawaki. It wouldn't take what's currently there, it would take what's there from birth.
So Kawaki's the way that he is because he was like that at birth.
It's possible.
I'm not asking you what's possible. I'm asking you what is. You presented this.
Well, this is based on
actually what you just said. I'm just like...
The wavelength is based on what could be because we don't know exactly what the wavelength is.
Okay, so since we don't know what the wavelength is, I'm not going to say that your definition for it's valid, so we can move on. Okay, so move on past the wavelength.
Okay, so what do you think the valid
So
definition for the wavelength is? Because the wavelength matters.
It matters to you. Again, I said like he's not like reliable in this instance because I don't know how he arrived at this conclusion.
Would
I don't even know if
Jigen
this
be
conclusion is
reliable?
accurate. That's your that's what you like. That's what you're implying from the actual scene that Jigen told him that.
All right. We'll move on.
And even if Jigen did tell him that, I'm not even entirely sure what that's supposed to mean. Like that, like wavelength might not even mean anywhere near what you're saying it does. And because you just said we don't know what it means, I'm not taking any definition from you.
Yeah,
So
in
we can move
universe
on
it
from
wouldn't.
that point.
In story it
So since-
would. But yeah, we can move on.
Yeah. So since there's like no explainer for why this guy can't, this gets me back to the human element being at play for Jigen. Since that is the thing that's making him like deficient, and since you have like no other counterpoints else. I think I've already provided enough information for Kaguya being over these people. There's the chakra fruit stuff in general. The Jigen as a human thing, versus like the 10 tails Jinchuriki Madara. I do think Jigen, human monk Jigen, is inferior to the 10 tails Jinchuriki, which is like the vessel of a Kaguya, and that vessel can house her immense power for at minimum 48 hours, which is how long Jigen's body can store the brimming with power Ishiki. And I believe that there's a reason why Ishiki's about to die, because the human element, which I believe is responsible, and there's nothing else contradicting that I've been presented with, is at play. And because that is the case, I put the Tensei Jinchuriki over a human, and she has a superior vessel in that regard. But that's all that was meant to like convey. I don't even really need that. It was just like an additive. The fact that she consumes the chakra fruit, given they both came to the planet, and she packed him up before she consumes it, and the chakra fruit has like a record of all life that ever lived and died on the planet, including himself, so spoken by himself. She gets his power as well.
Real quick,
if you want to employ how she would use that power, or that type of shit. Real fine.
Quick,
yeah, hit me up.
The obviously the fruit has the record of all things, including Ishiki. That would include Ishiki's powers. Why do you think the record of Ishiki's power would scale directly to Ishiki?
Because there's nothing in the series that would point to an exponential increase in his power when the record would be recorded. Or when she would eat the fruit, because anything post that I think would be irrelevant. And present day Ishiki, as far into the series as he's gotten, I don't see any indication of him like getting any kind of like boost that would be of worth, and I can't like quantify that. I mean, I saw him like beat children with a pole. I'm sorry, beat a child with a pipe. I did see that, but I didn't. Outside of that, I didn't really see anything like special from him.
I don't think you understood. I mean,
do you have something
question.
to point
to? I didn't mean that Ishiki got stronger over time. That'd be a different argument. I'm saying the chakra fruit that Kaguya ate. Let's assume that there was no life on the planet. It was just Ishiki. So the only record of the chakra fruit was Ishiki. How much stronger does Kaguya get if she ate that chakra fruit of only Ishiki's record?
It wouldn't be only Ishiki, because she would be life as well. So
assuming she never was on the planet. There you go.
It's impossible to do that, because the second she's on the planet, her record is restored. There's like no description of time that's required as a prerequisite for like recorded data in the chakra fruit.
We don't know
like,
what
if
on
she's
the
eating
planet
the fruit,
means.
she's on the planet. If she's on the planet, she's getting her record.
Not necessarily, because you could just fly the whole time. That might just be a distinguishing factor for off the planet. The point is that she just gets the fruit. Either way, it's not going to happen in the series anyways. So with this idea, would it be plus Ishiki times Ishiki to the exponent of Ishiki less than Ishiki? How much does Ishiki's record give a boost of power in terms of Ishiki?
It would be Ishiki's power. It would be Ishiki's power, Kaguya's power, and then Kaguya's power, given the description of how it functions. And then whatever the fuck else was on the planet.
Well, how are you
some
getting...
people argue Shibai. I would never make the argument because I can't prove that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How are you getting the record to the power, though? How does it transfer in that way?
Well, look at the screenshots I gave you. Like, it explains the process, like what's occurring per Ishiki's dialogue.
It records everything, which would include the power. That's fine. So it records the power. But then how does that, eating that, transfer, the record of that, transfer back to Kaguya? To give her Ishiki's power.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Crystallization of the planet's life
where are these?
Shall contain everything, a record of all life that ever lived and died on this planet, including me.
Let me see. Yeah, so we look at so it shall contain everything. Everything is a term that encompasses like the totality of a thing. If it includes Ishiki, then it shall contain all of Ishiki. And then of course the everything would be given the context in which we're discussing, obviously. I know Bar tried to bring up, well, does it contain the ability to have a jacket? That was dumb. I love him deeply, but that was yeah. So we're not going to play that game. Given the context in which we're discussing. So and then Mato says here, the chakra fruit is a cluster of tremendous energy and genetic data. Then also we know that she manifests a dojutsu after consuming the chakra fruit. So it affects her on the genetic level. So that's like everything is just at play there to bring to bear for like the explainers for why she would get his power as well. But it's all in the explanations.
I think you're connecting dots that aren't necessarily there. Is this following directly after that above statement?
What above statement? Let me see.
The contains everything, crystallization, all life, blah blah. This one.
No, these are two different instances. This is when Jigen is around. And then the first one where it shows the tree is when Ishiki's talking to Cold.
So
no,
then
there's completely two different arcs.
the chakra fruit doesn't necessarily, like, the tremendous energy and genetic data isn't necessarily linked to the record at all, as far as we know. The chakra fruit can contain a
So
record of
again,
all life and have its own tremendous energy and genetic data.
okay. So again, we're gonna read. Give me a second. Let me get back up. All right. As it pertains to so it's a crystallization of a planet's life. It shall contain everything, a record of all life that ever lived and died on this planet, including me. Cool. And now this is in reference to like Cole upgrading himself into that of an Otsutsuki. So obviously genetic component is at play there. Otsutsuki being a clan, blah blah blah, right? Genetics, blah blah blah. And then also Amato's explanation, the chakra fruit is a cluster of tremendous energy and genetic data. So given that the chakra fruit is bored by the god tree, and we understand the process of the god tree, and we also see like what the effects of consuming the chakra fruit is through Kaguya, just like a one-to-one logic. I mean, it's not even like a one-to-one logic. It's just stated there.
Code
And
doesn't
then
get
also
you
I provided
there.
screenshots of you said what I just explained doesn't get me to my conclusion. What
The
do you mean
code
by that?
thing. Yeah. Code just, he does upgrade himself with the white karma seal, which isn't the normal karma seal. And then that doesn't get you to the chakra fruit
Oh, that's wrong.
containing the
Come on,
genetic
Oodie, that's
material of the
wrong.
Otsusuki.
It's wrong. You're already wrong. You're
Why?
already wrong. Take into consideration the context in which all this is being discussed. There's a reason why he's invoking the God tree. There's a reason why he's leading Code down the path of the God tree. There's a reason why Code wants to sacrifice Boruto to the God tree. There's a reason why he wants the chakra fruit. There's a reason why all that's occurring is because Ishiki told him that he needs to do that. That's the mission that was bequeathed to him so that he can become an Otsutsuki God, a peerless being. Right? It's not through the white karma that Ishiki himself doesn't even understand. It's through the God tree. We don't need to do that, man. It's a waste of time.
Well, yeah, so then he gets it and he upgrades himself based on its tremendous energy and genetic data.
Yes, and where does the chakra fruit come from? Where is it comprised from?
What is it comprised from? The Ten Tails?
Where does it stem from? Where does it come from?
The seed.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
You
This
said the
is
tree?
dumb. All right, bro.
Okay.
The fucking seed, really, bro? Bro, good night. Good night.
What,
You
the
have a good
tree?
one.
It comes from the seed. That's where it stems from. What do you mean?
This dude said the seed, bro. That's wild.